Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So we'll continue our lecture on the intermediate accounting. Okay, so we are already on the chapter 2 on the intermediate accounting entitled cash and cash equivalents. Okay, so at the end of the at the end of the lecture, you are expected to um, okay, so you are expected to first to define cash and identify the items that are included in the cash and cash equivalents. Kaya ano bala ang mga different kinds ng cash and cash equivalents ano? Kay sa aton nga normal life, kay sa mga layman terms, okay, sa mga normal nga terms, when we say of cash, okay, it composed only of the bills and coins, okay? Pero pag abot sa accounting, may mga different yang forms of cash, okay? And may mga ginatawag kita yung cash equivalents, okay? And of course, to account for petty cash funds and overage and shortages, okay? So we will first start on the definition of cash. So what is cash, ano? So, balde, cash kuno is a money or its equivalent that is readily available for, very important, please take note of this, unrestricted use. Okay? When we say of unrestricted, wala siya sang tawag niyo, wala siya sang condition para gamiton ina sa nga cash. Kumbaga magamit mo siya anytime. Okay? When you say of unrestricted use, pwede mo magamit ang cash anytime. Okay? And amo na siya ang pinaka characteristics ng cash unrestricted use. Okay, once nga ang cash is restricted or meaning may purpose siya kung diin siya gamiton, hindi mo na siya ma-consider as cash. Okay, but either i-account mo siya either short-term investments or short-term assets or may ara man non-current depende sa purpose sa nga cash nga gin restrict. Next, money daw is a standard medium of exchange and the basis of accounting measurements. Yes. Okay. Mostly, kay di ba magugani ang financial statement, saya palang term, it is primarily financial in nature. Meaning, most of the account and almost ganit tanan is measured by money. Okay. And other negotiable instruments that can be used to settle obligations and are readily available for unrestricted, okay, unrestricted liwata, may form part of cash. So next, what are the different examples of cash? So first, when you say of cash on hand, okay, damo-damo na siya nga examples. Okay, so meron kita di coins in bills, amo nang aton nga mga kwarta, okay, kwarta naton. Ano pa aton nga mga customers check, when you say of check, okay, kung nakita na mo sang check kaya mo na siya. Undeposited cash collections, traveler's check, cashier or official check, treasurer's check or manager's check, postal money orders, and bank drafts. Okay, so isa-isa ko na later. Okay, cash in bank. Okay, ang cash na to niya, may pakita cash on hand, may cash in bank pa ginatawag. When we say of cash in bank, amo na siya ang mga cash na to nga ara dito sa bank. So, duwa man na nakaklase. It's either checking account or savings. Okay? And may mga different kita cash fund. Ini mga cash fund, okay, current. Okay, when you say of current ilang nga purpose. Okay, like the change fund, ano ang change fund? Gina-set aside na siya sa company para magsinsilyo. Okay, payroll fund for salaries, purchasing fund, revolving fund, interest fund for mga interest expense, petty cash fund. Okay, so kung nabatian nyo na before, balaan nyo na kung ano yung petty cash fund, the dividend fund, the travel fund, tax fund, and other funds used in current operations. But take note, before ining maging cash, ining mga cash fund, kinanglan, ang nature sini is unrestricted. Kumbaga, pwede mo siya magamit sa other pagid nga purpose. Hindi siya sang restricted sa other nga sa specific nga purpose. Okay? So, postdated checks. Okay? Cheque. when we say of post-dated checks, okay, amo na siya mga checks nga dated sa future of time. Gin-issue mo sa yanda, okay? Gin-issue mo sa yanda, ginhatag mo sa imo supplier or sa aton nga supplier. But ang date niya is naka-future time. Baga, for example, nag-issue ka yanda. So, gin-date mo siya after 1 month, after 1 year, or after several months. Okay? Amo ng post-dated checks. How to account for that? Okay? Ano ang accounting process naton sa mga post-dated checks, especially ang mga post-dated checks nga received. What do you mean by received? Ang mga halin sa aton nga customers. Okay? So, post-dated checks received from customers are excluded from the cash. Okay, may example ko din. For example, you received customers checks totaling 100,000 pesos. Okay, paano mag-account sila? Debit, cash, of course. Pinaka-receive kita cash. In credit, accounts receivable for payment of that receivable. Okay? So at the end of the reporting period, you found out that a customer's check of 20,000, meaning 100,000 daw, 20,000 sinakuno, nga gin-include mo dito, is post-dated. Okay? Anong ginaobra gani? Excluded na siya supposed to be sa cash. So, paano mag-adjust for that? Okay? So, ma-debit kita, accounts receivable, okay, para ibalik ang 20,000 sa specific niya nga accounts receivable account, and credit, cash, kay dulaon ta siya, kaya hindi ta siya gani sang collections. Okay? Kaya i-exclude ta siya from cash. Okay? So, next, post-dated checks and undelivered checks. So this time, kita naman yung nag-ubra sang check eh. Kaginaya, na-receive natin yung check from our customers. So for example, you wrote the following checks today. Check number 1, drawn for 10,000 and dated today, but yet to deliver to the payee. Okay? So when you issue check, okay? So tandaan nyo nga ang check is a form of negotiable instrument. So kung sa law nyo, mag 4th year or 3rd year, dara nyo mabalaan nga ang check is a form of a negotiable instrument. So, amaya, nag-ubra ka kuno cheque nga 10,000 ang amount, gin-date mo yanda, meaning hindi siya post-dated pero wala mo pa mahatag sa kay Mr. A sa payee or sa kung kay sino man siya naton nga ginbayaran. Okay, saan mo siya nahatag? Next year. Check number 2 is drawn for 15,000 ang amount and was delivered to payee, nahatag naton sa kay payee, kay Mr. B, but the check is dated 5 months from now, meaning post-dated checks. So, how to account for that? So, the entry for the checks drawn is as follows. Debit, accounts payable, kay ginbayaran ta ang aton nga payable sa kay Mr. A, 10,000. Debit kita also 15,000. Okay, sa kay Mr. B, and credit kita 25,000. Okay? Kaso, di ba, hambal naton, wala pa naton ma-deliver, and at the same time, ang isa ka check is wala, naka-post dated. Okay? So, if financial statements are prepared today, both the checks must be reverted back to cash and accounts payable. Paano mag-adjust for that? So, ibalik mo lang siya. Ma-debit kita cash, nga 25,000, credit na yun, payable sa kay Mr. A, kay Mr. B. Okay? So, nga man, it's because wala pa ma-deliver kay payee, meaning wala pa na yung mag-iban sa aton nga bangko, kaya pa sa aton ang check. While ang sa kay Mr. B, although na-deliver siya, pero ang date niya 5 months after. So, post-dated. So, maiba na ya 5 months from now. So, di na yan mag-iban yanda. So, no need nga iiban sa iya nga or sa aton nga accounts payable sa iya. So, stale checks. What is a stale check? Okay? If check is delivered to payee, nahatag naton sa aton payee, sa supposed to be nga bayaran naton sa aton nga utang or payables, and are not in cash within a relative long period of time. Okay? So, currently, ang sa mga banks, sa mga bangko na, once nga ang cheque, wala mo pa in cash within 6 months, tawag sina stale check. And ang accounting procedure sa mga stale checks is ibalik naton sa aton nga cash. The moment nga mag-stale ang cheque, dapat ibalik ta na siya sa aton nga cash account. Okay? Ang na ang usual nga procedure sina kay di ba nahatag tanaya kay pay. So di naton balaan kung na in cash na or not. Okay? So ang ginaobra sina once nga mag-abot siya sang 6 months, kay kita may as business may recording yung mga recording process man kita. Dapat once nga mag-stale na siya, automatic ibalik naton sa cash kay may record makita kung saan nato na gin-issue nga check and kung saan siya maiban sa ton nga bank account through the use of bank reconciliation. Okay? So sa next chapter amo na ang topic, bank reconciliation. Okay. Stale checks are reverted back to cash, same as undelivered checks. Okay? So mapus mo na siya ang cash. Next, the cash equivalence. What is a cash equivalence? Cash equivalents are short-term, highly liquid investments that are readily convertible to known amounts of cash and which are subject to an insignificant risk of changes in value. So may hatag mo ko yung example later. Okay? Definition as sang past 7. Okay, statement of cash flows. So only highly liquid investments that are acquired, to very important ni siya sa cash equivalent sa before naton ma-consider nga ang cash equivalent nga na or ina nga instrument or ina nga investment is cash equivalent, kinanglan may ara siya sang 3 months rule. Ano nang 3 months rule? Kinanglan ina nga investment gin-acquired mo 3 months or less before its maturity. Okay, then that's the time mo qualify to siya as cash equivalent. When you say of maturity, ma-due na sa bala, ma-due date na siya. Okay? So what are the examples of cash equivalents? Number 1, treasury bills. Okay? Notes or bonds acquired 3 months before maturity date. When we say of treasury bills, it is a short-term obligation issued by the government. Okay, government sina yan nag-issue. And treasury bills normally have a maturity of 90 days to less than a year. Okay, so treasury notes and treasury bonds are long-term obligations issued also by the government. Ano? And treasury notes have a maturity of 1 year to less than 10 years. So treasury bonds have a maturity of 10 years and more. So, okay, so let's continue. So money market instrument. Okay, ano ning money market instrument? Next, treasury notes and treasury bonds are long-term obligations issued also by the government, but treasury notes have a maturity of 1 year to less than 10 years. And treasury bonds have a maturity of 10 years and above. So muna mga difference nila, mga key differences nila. Next, the money market instrument or commercial paper acquired, of course, also 3 months before maturity date. So money market instruments are investments in portfolio of short-term securities. So sa inyong mga advanced accounting or management accounting, mabalaan nyo kung ano ang portfolio. Okay, ang portfolio, okay, imagine nyo kung anong itsura sa portfolio, di ba? So it's like a big di ba? The folder siya nga may different divisions. Amo man na siya diyan namin nga portfolio. May different sa isa ka folder nga dako makita mo da ang different nga investment, different individual investment kag ginbutang lang sa isa ka lugar. Okay? So commercial papers consist of short-term unsecured notes payable issued in large denominations by large companies with high credit ratings to other institutional investors. It has normally a maturity date of less than 270 days. Okay? So no need nga lagpato ni siya guys ha. All you need to do is to familiarize yourself with the differences or mga different nga mga cash equivalents, different nga cash. Okay? And another example of cash equivalents, ang 3-month time deposit. Okay, when you say of time deposit, inang mga bank mga deposit mo sa bank, hindi mo siya makuha within a specified period of time. So, if ang time deposit is 3 months or less, pwede mo siya ma-considered as cash equivalents. Pero kapag more than 3 months siya, of course, hindi mo siya ma-consider as cash or cash equivalents Okay, makonsider mo siya as mga short-term investments. Okay? So, for example, so ABC Company holds the following short-term investments as of December 31, right, 20x1. So, number 1-year treasury bill. Take note saan siya ma-mature? March 30, 20x2. So, pagka next year. Ginbakal mo siya when? July 1, 20x1. Okay? And 1-year treasury bill maturing on March 30, the same sila, acquired on December 31, 20x1. So, requirement, which of the investments may qualify as cash equivalents? 1 or 2? Okay? So, the answer, only the second treasury bill may qualify as cash equivalents. Ngayon, it is acquired 3 months or less. Saan mo siya gin-acquire? December 31. Saan siya ma-mature? March 30. Okay? So, note is, what is important is the date of acquisition. Ay wala ya labot kung saan siya gin-create or kung saan siya gin-obra as investment. But, ang importante is mabalaan nyo kung saan mo siya gin-acquire. Saan mo ang date of acquisition niya, which should be 3 months or less before maturity date. So how to prepare or how to present the cash and cash equivalents. So items of cash and cash equivalents are aggregated, meaning ginasimpon, and presented in a statement of financial position under a single line item described as the cash and cash equivalents. Okay? So isa lang na siya ka line item sa financial statement sa pinakababaw sa cash. Kaya the cash and cash equivalents. But ang composition niya, kung ano ang cash equivalents, is nakabutang sa notes to financial statements. Okay? Another tip, when answering problems, guys, usually ginatrick ka muna sang question sa dalam, kung ang ginapamangkot is cash lang, okay, you answer the cash only. Kung ang gina-ask sang problem is cash equivalents only, so you answer and focus on the cash equivalents. Kung magpamangkot siya cash and cash equivalents, then that's the time i-total mo ang duha. Okay? How to measure? Of course, cash is measured at face value or the face amount. And cash denominated in foreign currency, mga dollars, or for example, imo negosyo nag-earn ka sang dollars, kinahanglan i-translate mo na siya sa current exchange rate as of the reporting date. And cash maintained in a bank undergoing bankruptcy is excluded from cash and presented as a receivable measured at realizable value. Okay? So, compensating balance. Ano ang compensating balance? Okay, so compensating balance is a minimum amount that must be maintained in an entity's bank account as support for funds borrowed from the bank. So, in other terms, na mga maintaining balance. Yung sa maintaining balance, di ba, hindi ka ka-withdraw or hindi makakakuha money sa bank beyond that, di ba? For example, ang niya maintaining balance 1,000, din ang unod sang bank mo is 100,000, ang maximum amount nga pwede mo lang makuha is the 99,000. Okay? Do the same na ang functions ang inang ginatawag na compensating balance. So, compensating balance that are legally, take note of this, legally restricted as to withdrawal by the borrower are excluded from cash. While, kung not legally restricted siya for withdrawal, i-include mo siya sa cash. Kaya mo ng mga technique guys, ining mga paaman, bala nga mga notes, amo nang i-focus nyo. Wala man kuya ga require nga bilog ilagpaton nyo or ma-master nyo tanan. Yung mga focus points, mga highlight points, amo nang ipangtandaan nyo. Whether restricted or not, compensating balances are disclosed in the notes. Okay. Next, bank overdraft. Okay, very important din siya. What is a bank overdraft? So, bank overdraft, or another term niya is cash overdraft, is a negative balance in the cash in bank account resulting from overpayment of checks in excess of the amount of deposit. So, what does it mean? Okay, so later, i-illustrate ko siya. So, a bank overdraft is presented as a current liability unless it qualifies to be offset against cash. Take note of this, Offsetting, diba, maraton sa standard, offsetting is not allowed Okay? Offsetting is not allowed. Assets should not be offset with the liabilities unless permitted by the standard. Amo ni siyang example sang pwede siya ma-offset. Okay? Kung for example, the same bank man lang, then may different ka nga bank accounts, then pwede siya ma-offset. Okay? For example, ABC company had the following bank accounts. Cash in bank niya sa BPI, may duha siya, savings and current, 150,000. Sa BDO naman, duha man. Kaso, kung tanawon nyo, si savings ni BDO, negative 10,000. Okay? Possible cause sina, nag-over, siya, nag-over issued sa sang checks. Okay? So, anong treatment sina? The cash in bank savings in BDO is considered as bank overdraft. Okay, according to standard, it can be offset against the cash in bank current BDO. Ini, duwa sila. Okay? Because both came from the same bank. Okay? Pero kung different bank ni sila, if different bank ni ang duha, hindi pwede. I-report mo ni si BDO nga cash in bank na savings as part sa current liabilities. Okay? So assuming that ABC company had only one bank account in BDO, which has an overdraft, it must be or it is treated as current liability. Okay, next, petty cash fund. Okay, saan ganik taga petty cash fund? If the company or most company must use ang ginatawag na nga impressed fund system, di ba? When we say of impressed fund system, pambalaton, ang tanan nga collections must be collected intact, must be collected in the bank, or must be deposited in the bank within a day. While disbursement or the purchases or the expenses must be in a form of checks. But there are times na may mga gagmay nga expenses, di ba? Mga pamasahe, mga pamilite, okay? So, hindi mo iwasan nga may magamit kagid sang cash kay kabudlay man na nga gamitan mo checks. That's why may gina-maintain kita ginatawag nga petty cash fund. So, petty cash fund is a money set aside to defray relatively small amounts of cash disbursement. Take note, small amounts. Okay? So, when we say of small amounts, okay, it's a matter of a company policy. Pero mostly, sa mga petty cash, so kapag daw ang expenses or purchases or other expenses, ang amount niya is less than 500, siya muna ang common, kapag less than 500 siya, pwede siya magamit as or pwede ka gamit petty cash fund for that. If more than siya sang 500, kinanglan in a form of check. Okay, kay once nga hindi ka mag-follow sina, ka-violate ka sa ginatawag nga impressed fund system. Okay, and kinanglan sa accounting, very strict kita pag-abot sina. Okay. So, how to account for that petty cash fund? Pause mo lang na siya. Once nga ma-establish isang petty cash fund, so i-debit mo lang, debit ka petty cash fund para may account siya nga petty cash fund. Okay, under man siya sa sa cash in cash equivalence nga account. In credit ka, cash in bank. Once nga mag-disburse ka o gamiton mo usage of fund sa petty cash, no journal entry is required. Okay, memorandum entry lang. Saan kita ga-entry? If ma-replenish na kita sang petty cash. So, how to replenish? Debit, of course, various expense accounts or da nga mga related expense account na ginagamit sa petty cash, and credit kita cash in bank. So, if at the end of the year or at the end of the reporting period, petty cash ko is not replenished, anong ginaobra sina? Okay, various expense accounts, of course, in credit mo lang petty cash fund. Pero make sure mo lang nga pag opening sang books sa the following year, okay, kinanglan i-reverse mo ni nga account. Okay? So when you wish to increase the petty cash fund, the same process, debit ka petty cash, credit cash in bank. To decrease naman, debit ka cash in bank, credit ka doon petty cash fund. Okay? So what will happen if may shortage sa petty cash or maski sa normal nga cash So debit ka lang various expense account, debit ka cash short or over, in credit ka cash in bank. So ang question, kung hindi mo balaan kung sino ang nag-create sang shortage, usually gina sa dayon, gina other expenses. Pero kung mabalaan kung sino ang nag-shortage, ang accounting treatment siya should be a i-receivable mo siya sa kung sino ang nag-create sang shortage. And mostly si cashier. Okay? Cashier na ang usually nga may account kami na. Overage meaning sobra. So various expense account, debit, credit na yun, cash out over, yung credit cash and back. So if mabalaan kung sino ang nag-create sang overage, as long as valid ang overage, ibayad mo na or ibalik mo na siya sa responsible party. Or kung hindi, consider as other income. Okay? So that would be all for the cash. So next chapter which is the bank reconciliation, more on solvings ni siya and I hope mas kung makagamit na kami sang whiteboard kaya ibagi diya nga may solvings mapakita namon ang techniques how to solve but for now okay drill na ta danay. Okay, so thank you and keep safe everyone. Bye.